Hey everyone. So about a week and a half ago, we announced that Big Pharma is close to entering into the psychedelic space. Well, there was an announcement made last week, and they're now in. Who is the big pharma company who entered into the space, and who do they partner with? Find out now in our latest podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the Dales Report podcast, and happy to be joined here today on the podcast, the CEO of MSET Pharma, James Lanthier. James, great to have you on. It's been about a week and a half since we last saw you, but how are things?
Things are great, Chad. Great to see you again.
Yeah, big week last week. Big announcement. I know when we had you on our podcast a week and a half ago, you were talking about Big Pharma obviously entering into space, and that's indeed what happened. So let's begin with last week's big announcement. And perhaps I would say the biggest news so far this year in the psychedelic space. You announced that the McQuade Center for Strategic Research and Development, which is a division of Otsuka Pharmaceuticals, which is one of the largest pharma companies in the world, made an upfront cash payment of $5 million USD to help kickstart, obviously, MSET's family of Phase 1A and Phase 1B clinical trials. So, James, invite me into that phone call. And when that agreement took place, what was it that a leading global pharma company liked about what you're doing?
Yeah, it was, well, listen, the announcement from last week is really the culmination of a really long, rigorous process that we went through with Otsuka. The work that they did to really land on kind of MSET as a partner they wanted to go forward with, it started a year ago. We've been talking to them for the last 12 months, and then for really the last 9 months, really rigorous diligence. They really looked at everything we did, read every piece of data that we generated, and they came to MSET with an incredibly high level of sophistication in not only in mental health but in the psychedelic space.
Right.
So for those who don't know, Otsuka is a top global neuroscience company. They have really successful drug franchises in antipsychotics and mental health. Very large neuroscience company. They've actually done, they're of all of the big pharma companies, they're probably the most involved in the psychedelic space. So there's two other companies they're involved with. One of them is Atai. They have a partnership with a division of Atai's where they have partnered on a formulation of R-ketamine in Japan. And then they were financial investors in Compass.
Right.
But MSET is the third company that they've gotten involved with, and it's the first partnership or collaboration on new drugs that they've done, and it's the first collaboration agreement by any big pharma and any psychedelic company, on new drugs. So it's a huge validation for us, and it's a huge boost for us, frankly, in a lot of different ways. First of all, the deal actually is even better than it reads based on kind of a quick read of the announcement. They did make a $5 million payment to MSET, but that's actually the smaller component of the funding. The much bigger funding is they're funding all the development expenses of Family 2 and Family 4, which are MSET's short-acting drug families.
Okay.
And that could be up to $15, $20 million per family. So the $5 million is MSET to do what it will with for general corporate purposes. They're actually funding the development of 2 and 4. And really in what, as the
$5 million
what they
potentially
really
could be like a $30 to $40 million agreement is what you're implying.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. This is a much larger deal financially than the $5 million. And it's not actually an investment, it's a payment. So all of that funding is non-dilutive. So there's no price to it. We haven't sold any shares or debt or anything like that.
I noticed that.
What they get in return for that is as a right of first refusal on Family 2 and 4 at the end of Phase 1. which
So what
from
does
our
that mean?
standpoint is
What's
amazing.
that mean then?
Yeah, what it means is they get the first crack at negotiating a new deal with Mindset
Okay.
at the end of phase one. If and when, once those drugs prove that they have some efficacy and safety as you get through the end of phase one, and that all that does is it sets Mindset up to do hopefully a much larger deal at the end of phase one. So Mindset hasn't had to give up any economics really at all in these families. It's gotten financing at the lowest possible cost of
Yeah.
capital, and it's gotten it from a strategic, because the other thing that frankly makes us so excited about partnering with Otsuka is that we get to really leverage all of their expertise at getting drugs to market.
Yeah.
There's as there's an incredible array of different specialized skills that you need, and highly specialized people to take a drug, run it through the regulatory process, oversee clinical trials, figure out how you're going to manufacture and formulate it. And Otsuka has people at every step of the pharma value chain, and that represents a huge bottom line savings to Mindset to not have to go out and hire consultants
Yeah.
every step of the way to help us take our drugs all the way through clinical trials.
I
So
have to
it's huge.
ask, like, what are the things? Obviously, the data efficacy that's coming out obviously interests them, but some of the conversations that you do have with them, what is the stuff that really intrigues them about this industry? Because I'm sure a lot of investors are very eager to find out if and when, and it's not a matter of if, it's now big pharma is involved within this industry, but how this continues to play out as the year progresses. But what were some of the key components that they really liked?
Well, I think you can see that that they've been really doing their homework on the space and really getting actively involved to really try to learn the space. This deal is their first deal where or partnership where they're looking to actively develop new drugs to hopefully one day themselves take to market, or themselves or through a partnership with Mindset. So they very much understood kind of the parameters of psychedelic science when we first started talking. There was no having to kind of get them up to speed on the potential benefits or sort of the whys. I think the why mindset is I think at the end of the day, like we've been saying since the beginning, there's really two things that are important. There's having a strong IP position, and then having some differentiation, some data to show that the new drugs that we're working on are potentially improved in some ways over the first generation drugs. It's those are the foundations of any successful biotech business. Mindset, we were really focused from the beginning on getting really strong IP coverage as we could. So our patent applications went in really early relative to other folks in the space and relative to the space generally. They went in kind of early 2020, and Otsuka really looked at that, took a really hard look at Mindset's the strength of our IP, because for pharma, IP is really a huge part of the value proposition. They need to be able to defend and protect what they're taking to market. So I think the IP position of Mindset made a huge difference. And then we've been able to share with investors and with the public a lot of our data. And I think at least in terms of what we share publicly, Mindset has as qualified a portfolio of new patentable drugs as I think anybody in the market. So those really the strength of those two things.
It's exciting. I had an interview yesterday, and I one of the things I wanted to ask are what are 2 to 3 questions that you should be asked from a research standpoint when investing into this space? And I think one thing that gets actually overlooked is, when are companies filing their patents? And I know that you and I have talked about this in the past, but I will say one of the advantages that you have had are patents that were filed 2-3 years ago. Can you maybe elaborate on that and share a little bit of information to my viewers on the importance of obviously filing patents, let's say in your case, 2-3 years ago?
Yeah, for sure. So the date that you file a patent on is incredibly important, and it's critically important in the world of pharma and biotech, because whoever's filed a patent application on an individual compound first gets the priority on that compound. So anybody who comes after them and makes a similar claim, they don't have the same rights as whoever filed the application first. It's really simple. It's whoever puts that flag in the ground first. Now, ultimately, you need to have the patent office agree, but priority date is everything.
Yeah. Do you think, tough question maybe to answer, but do you think this industry will start to fall into like IP infringement situations with other various companies within the space? Is that something that people should be aware of?
I don't know. I don't know what shape or form that might take, but for sure, I think that that will be. We'll see. We'll see. There's a lot of companies, if you kind of go back in time, that were making somewhat similar claims.
Yeah.
At different points. Now, different companies have gone in different directions, but yeah, I think whether it comes out, I don't know how it'll come out, but I think that what I can say for sure is that will be an important driver of value.
One thing I noticed the last couple of days is that we're starting to see additional insider buying in your company, in your stock. That includes Director Richard Patrico, who purchased 183,500 shares since the announcement, which, needless to say, is a vote of confidence for your shareholder base. So as they bring this all together, you've signed a deal with perhaps one of the leading pharmaceutical companies in the world. You got a $5 price target and now recent insider buying. So if you're sitting in front of a group of investors, what do you want to communicate to them, both on your short and long-term outlook?
I think what we want to communicate is that we are really set for the future. We were one of the first groups to start filing patent applications. We're now the first group, really on the strength of our science, because it was our science that did it. On the strength of our science and our IP, we're the first group to strike, a major commercialization agreement. It's the top. It's as good an endorsement on the quality of our science as we could hope for. They did more diligence on what we have than any, even a sophisticated biotech investor could, hope to do. It massively increases our chance of successfully getting to clinically successful new drugs. And as I said, it's really the best possible funding solution for our programs. All the funding's non-dilutive, means we don't need to raise any capital to run the business or to advance the programs. So, valuations go up and down, but these are the types of we're in this for the long haul. Yeah. And for what our eyes are on now is really driving these drugs forward, creating new drugs, and playing for that massive, significant increase in value that you can get when you start qualifying drugs through clinical phases. Yeah. So. Yeah. Last
thing I wanted to bring up, and you brought it up earlier, Otsuka has, I guess, an already established background within this industry, having invested into companies like Atai and Compass Pathways, which are viewed as, quite honestly, some of the leaders in the space. So it's a good company, obviously, to be in for Mindset. So do you feel, I guess, confident right now to share with investors that you're viewed now upon as a industry leader within this industry?
Absolutely. And that's how we've been, thinking of ourselves really for quite some time, because when we look around, we think that, I think Mindset has as strong a portfolio of new drugs as anybody in the market. And we now have the as good a third party validation as you're going to get to back that up. So, yeah. I do think of Mindset as really a top leader in the space, and at some point the value will hopefully flip around to reflect that. But in the meantime, we'll just keep executing and proving out what we're saying.
Well, keep up the great work. Obviously, a great announcement last week, and what a way to kick off the new year. You must be pretty happy so far.
Very happy, but we're only just getting started. So
I think that's what people want to
pretty
hear,
excited.
right? Anyway, listen, Happy New Year. Great catching
Thanks,
up with
Shad.
you. And honestly, great work and great announcement last week. I know you'd mentioned on our podcast that once one pharma announcement's made, we could see more announcements happening right away. So I know a lot of investors have been beat up, but this is an example of like the long-term benefits and the data that's being produced. There's a lot of upside for the industry, but I appreciate you checking in this today here, James.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, I think the long-term prospects for this space are stronger than ever.
It's great. It's great. Thanks, James. Appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Shad.